Maybe held her breath, peering through a crack in the wall. The woman in the white raincoat glided past, a knife dripping blood. She turned, but there was no face. Maybe a solitary woman ventured into the forest to explore, but unfortunately got lost. Suddenly, a heavy rainstorm hit, forcing Maybe to quickly seek shelter. Maybe found a small, abandoned wooden house in the woods. She entered it temporarily to escape the rain. Maybe walked around the house. A musty smell and a chill ran down her spine. She found an old photo frame, face down. When she flipped it, it showed a family whose faces were scratched and blurred. Maybe called out loudly. No one answered, feeling a biting cold even though the windows were tightly shut. Behind her, children's laughter echoed, but the surroundings remained empty. Maybe panicked, wanting to run, but the door vanished, an endless hallway stretching before her. She looked in the mirror and saw the face of a middle-aged woman. The shadow of the woman in the white raincoat lunged, pulling her into the darkness. Maybe opened her eyes to find herself as a child, hugging a teddy bear, trembling. The door opened, and the woman stepped out with rusty scissors. The child screamed, then was stabbed. Maybe opened her eyes again, this time as a bewildered, middle-aged man. The woman pushed him down into a blood-filled bathtub. Bubbles rose like sobs. About to suffocate, Maybe opened her eyes, this time as herself. The woman was still the killer, her white raincoat now stained with red blood. Maybe struggled to run, but the floor contracted, pulling her closer to the killer. The blade slashed across the killer's face, blood splattering. Maybe collapsed. The light faded, leaving only maniacal laughter. She woke up in a cold white room, breathing heavily again. On the wall were portraits: a woman, a little girl, a man, and Maybe. A medical record fell to the floor. Her real name was Sarah Glenwood, 32 years old, with a history of murder. Sarah screamed, clutching her head in pain, surrounded by white shadows. The people she had killed had never left.
I was trapped in a room with no way out and didn't remember who I was, but the walls around me were telling the story of every crime I had committed. I woke up in a sealed room. No windows, no doors, only a dim light shone straight down from the ceiling, flickering as if about to go out completely. I didn't remember who I was, didn't know why I was here. No phone, no clock, and no one else in this room. I tried banging my hands against the wall, screamed, but there was no echo. It was as if even sound was imprisoned in this room. I started to panic. My bare feet stepped on the cold stone floor. My head spun. I felt like I was being punished for something I couldn't possibly remember. I began walking along the walls, my hand gently gliding, searching for traces. At first, I only saw small scratches, like those made by fingernails. But then, as my eyes adjusted to the weak light, I realized they were drawings, scribbled lines, but still clear enough to see a man holding something like a knife. On another wall, I saw the scene of a person being dragged across the floor. Rough, distorted images. But there was something terrifyingly familiar about them. Then I remembered I was the one in that picture, the one holding that knife. Each scene appeared vividly. I strangled a woman, I stabbed a child. I couldn't believe that I was the one who had done those things. In a state of confusion, I screamed, clawed at the wall, trying to erase those drawings. But the more I did that, the more new lines appeared on the walls. Then I heard hundreds, thousands of whispers echoing in my head. They blamed me, cursed me, reminded me of every face I had killed. And when I collapsed in exhaustion, I realized this was not a real place. This was the prison of my mind, where my soul was being confined for the unforgivable. I didn't know how long had passed. Time no longer had meaning for me here. I didn't die, but I didn't live either. I no longer felt anything in my body. All I had left were memories, haunting, wrapping around me like vines that bound me tightly.
Every night at 2 a.m., I heard my mother's lullaby coming from downstairs. But the problem was, my mother had just passed away last month. My name is June, 27 years old, a freelance graphic designer. After my mother died from a sudden stroke, I decided to return to the old house in Vermont, where I was born and raised. I hoped to find the familiar peace there to help soothe the pain of losing my mother. I began to relive old habits, sitting in the exact chair my mother used to sit in, eating from the porcelain bowl she used. This made me feel as if my mother was still by my side like before. On the first night, I couldn't sleep because the emptiness in my chest kept stabbing sharply. I told myself I needed time to get used to life without my mother anymore. Then, when the clock struck exactly 2 a.m., a melody suddenly sounded from downstairs. At first, I thought it was a hallucination because there was no one else in the house but me. But when I listened more carefully, I was shocked to realize it was the lullaby my mother used to sing to me every night.
Sleep well, my dear. I am always here.
I ran downstairs to check but found nothing, and the singing had stopped at some point. Maybe I missed my mother so much that I created that sound in my head. In the following nights, the lullaby still played at exactly 2 a.m. But the melody was no longer gentle. The sounds began to distort and go off beat. I searched every drawer and corner of the room, trying to find where the sound came from. When I knelt beside the bed, I discovered an old cassette player, rusted and worn. I picked it up, my hands trembling as I pressed play.
Don't go to the basement. Don't go to the basement.
I couldn't endure it any longer. An unnamed urge forced me to go down. I jumped up, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out of the room. Downstairs, I stood frozen in front of the basement door that had somehow been left ajar. I had never gone in there. My mother had strictly forbidden me since I was a child, afraid I might fall. I reached out and pushed the door. The hinge screeched a long, chilling sound. When the flashlight stopped on a familiar object, my old cradle. Inside the cradle was an old leather notebook, its cover worn and torn. It was my mother's diary. I picked it up and flipped through the pages. The writing was broken, as if from someone losing their mind. On the last page, I saw a scribbled line, ink blurred as if smeared by tears. I I took her life. However, why is she still present? I immediately put my hand on my chest. No warmth, no heartbeat. It turned out I was dead, but my soul was still trapped in this house. Every night I lived again, repeating familiar actions. And tonight, here I was again.
I used to think the rumors about ghosts were just a joke until I woke up in the room that everyone said had been locked for the past 3 years. My name is Mike, 19 years old, a first-year college student who had come from the countryside to the city because I registered for the dorm late and there were no rooms left. I was forced to look for a place outside. A senior suggested I try an old apartment building, but there was something strange about it.
The 6th floor of that building was locked after a student hanged herself in room 602.
I'm not afraid of those things. Thanks, bro.
That afternoon, when I spoke with the building manager, a middle-aged woman named Maria, she said there was only one apartment left, number 502, which meant directly above it was room 602 from the rumor. With no other choice, I had to accept renting this place. During the first few nights there, I kept waking up startled by strange noises coming from the ceiling, the sound of a chair being dragged, then silence. A moment later, a loud crash hit the floor. That sound kept repeating, and it started to really irritate me.
Hey, what the hell is with all the noise? Damn dropout.
At that very moment, all the sounds suddenly stopped, as if strangled. The next night, after my friend's birthday party, I got drunk and came home quite late. When I got to my room, I saw the door was unlocked. At first, I thought I had forgotten to lock it and didn't pay attention. The room was still dark. The musty smell was strong, but all I wanted was to lie down, so I didn't turn on the light and just fell asleep. As soon as I dozed off, I dreamed that I had failed the course and had to drop out of school. Desperate, I tied a rope around my neck and hung myself from the ceiling fan. The feeling of suffocating pain was unbearable, like my head was about to explode. Terrified, I bolted upright and turned on the light with trembling hands, then realized this wasn't my room. The room was covered in dust, cobwebs everywhere, and a putrid smell filled the air. I looked up at the ceiling fan, which was twisted as if someone had once hanged themselves there. Panicked, I ran outside and froze when I saw the number 602 on the door. I screamed and ran toward the elevator, pressing the button to go down, but the elevator didn't move. Suddenly, I heard slow footsteps echoing clearly, along with the familiar dragging sound of a chair. I glanced toward room 602, and a girl wearing an old dress stepped out. Her head hung low. Her long hair covered her face, and a rope was still wrapped around her neck. Terrified, I ran toward the stairwell, but the way down was tightly locked. I summoned all my strength to kick the door open and dashed downstairs. A chilling, sharp laugh echoed behind me. A woman's laugh, hoarse and full of glee.